speaking of big fights, we've got a big card this weekend with UFC 273 back in Jacksonville, where it all began again when they came back from the pandemic, and that was the first place because Jacksonville, as far as they're concerned, we never had a pandemic. They filled up a stadium, and before we even had a vaccine, pretty widely available, and here we go, and we're kind of out of this now, and they're back there, and good for them, and they're getting a big card because we got the 2 title fights, we got the return of Khamzat, we got a whole bunch of interesting prospects on the card, and we'll get into some of those fights. But headlining the show is a featherweight championship match. Korean Zombie, I believe this is his second title shot. He got a shot at Jose Aldo like 10 years ago.
Yeah, UFC 163.
Or 9 years ago.
UFC 163 in August of 2013.
Yeah, wow. And he's only fought 6 times since then in 9 years. But, he had that military duty, he had the injuries.
Military duty injuries, yeah.
Yeah, but he's back. He, he's won 3 of his last 4. The only loss was, a close decision to Brian Ortega. And, and he's a guy like, you could argue that, other people maybe deserve it more, but, he's a popular guy. It's a good fight. It's definitely a legitimate title fight. Because the best other option would have been Holloway, and Volkanovski's, quote unquote, beat him twice. It's a fresh challenger, and we've got a bunch of interesting featherweight fights coming up that should determine the next challenger, whoever comes out of this. And and it's I kind of wish this fight was either in in Korea or in New Zealand or Australia, because I think that would be even bigger over there. But this this crowd's gonna love this, and this show's gonna do. It's gonna get. It's not gonna do bonker numbers on pay-per-view, but it's gonna do all right. And how do you break this fight down, Ryan?
So Alexander Volkanovski. This is his chance to prove that he's legitimately top 3 pound for pound in the world. It's a fight that he's wanted for years because the zombie, he's never in a bad fight. He seems to be one of those guys that brings out the best in all of his competitors just because of his fighting style. We've seen guys like Yair Rodriguez and Brian Ortega, and others that he's fought who have been kind of in some, so-so, moderate to boring fights, but whenever they fought the Zombie, those fights are just absolutely incredible. So Zombie he brings something just there's just something about him when you're watching him. It's like you can't take your eyes off of him because he's just it's a unique charisma that he has, because it's just he can take a beating and just keeps coming, and then he's always playing offense. He can always find a finish. He's so unique with his on the ground. He's had some crazy submissions. His fight with Dustin Poirier that went down in 2012 is one of the most underrated all-time great fights. If you have never seen that fight, or if it's been a while since you've seen that fight, I highly suggest going back and watching that, because it's just an absolute classic. He's never in a boring fight, and he brings out the best in his opponents. And I think for Volkanovski to clamor for that fight, he was going to fight Max Holloway, but Holloway wasn't cleared at the time of the booking. But Volkanovski immediately pointed I want the Zombie. Because it's just something about, if you beat the Korean Zombie, it's like you can handle anybody. So it's just such an interesting matchup, and Volkanovski is so damn good, and I don't think he gets the credit for being as good as he is. And that Ortega fight in September was just absolutely it was an incredible fight, and you saw Volkanovski bounce back from being in trouble, and the guy's 23-1, and he's won 20 straight fights, and he's 10-0 in the UFC. It's just, he's incredible, and I really think this is the fight I've been most looking forward to in the month of April. Talked about it when we did the question thing last week. put it in my column, and I'm so looking forward to this fight, and I think it's going to be a fight of the year contender, to be honest.
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, I picked the Khamzat fight, obviously, as my one that I was looking forward to. But it's not to say I'm not looking forward to this one, because, like you said, I mean, I think a lot of people overlook Volkanovski because, he had the 2 close fights with Max Holloway, the second of which, most people think that Holloway won, and the first one was real close as well. But I mean, the guy's beat. He's beat Holloway twice. He's beaten Brian Ortega. He's beaten Jose Aldo, Chad Mendez, Darren Elkins. That's his last 6 fights. That is, I mean, there's nobody, I don't think, in any weight class that has that quality of opposition that they've beaten in their last 6 fights. But yet nobody talks about him as number 1 pound for pound. He just doesn't even seem to be in the conversation. And honestly, if he beats the Zombie, I mean, he's in, he needs to be in the consideration for like the best featherweight of all time in UFC, in my opinion. That would be 11 straight wins, and then you're in the conversation with Max Holloway and Jose Aldo. It's hard to argue against him, especially if it's a decisive win. But you can't count out the Korean Zombie either. Although, the wins he has aren't as big as the wins that Volkanovski has, and he's lost to some of the guys that Volkanovski's beat. So, but I am looking forward to this because Korean Zombie's not going to quit. So he's either going to get like knocked out cold, and even then he might just get up and keep fighting, or this is going to be just a 5-round war, or at some point the ref or the corner might have to stop it, because I don't think Korean Zombie's ever going to quit. And and he could easily knock out Volkanovski as well, because Volkanovski's shown that he can take, he can be hit, especially early. So if both of them can survive like the first 2 rounds, I think we're in for a long fight and a great fight. So that's my opinion.
Yeah.
So, and next up, we've got a rematch for the UFC bantamweight title. It's the interim champion Peter Yan against the undisputed champion Aljamain Sterling. Of course, Aljamain Sterling won the title in their last fight, but he was losing the fight, and then he got DQ'd because of an illegal knee, and Peter Yan. Or the other way around. Sorry. Peter Yan was winning. Right? Yeah. Sorry.
Yan
hit an illegal knee. He had an illegal knee on. Yeah. I know what happened. I'm just trying to. I'm just trying to, like, my brain isn't functioning in full,
you just got it backwards
capacity right now.
You just got it backwards.
Yeah. Well, I know what happened, but yeah. So this is the fight. I mean, technically, Sterling's won 6 in a row now, and he beat Yan for the title in the last fight, but he was going to lose that fight if Peter Yan didn't get DQ'd. So, and then he was injured. So, it's been just over a year. This fight was originally supposed to happen in October, and it was pushed back to now, and it's going to be co-main here on again on a big card. I mean, I can't say I'm terribly looking forward to this one. I don't see any reason it's not going to go the same way the last one went. It may even be quicker, because Peter Yan, I think, is he's probably pissed off and he wants to prove a point. And Aljamain Sterling did not do himself any favors by the way he was acting after the fight, and and I know even some people were claiming he was faking being hurt. I mean, anyone that saw that shot, like he wasn't faking it, but I mean, he did essentially quit, even though he was injured and he could quit, and he knew he would win the title if he quit. But it's still something that not a lot of fighters would have done. I remember, I think it was Anthony Smith was in a situation like that, or maybe it was somebody else, where they could have quit and won the fight, and they kept fighting and they ended up losing. I can't remember.
Yeah, it was.
You have better memory than me.
It was in the John Jones fight.
Right. Yeah. Because he had an illegal blow, and I think he was poked in the eye, right? And then and he said, I can keep going, even though like people were even saying, I think the commentators were, quit, you'll win the title. But he wasn't going to do that.
It was a legal knee. The poke in the eye would have gone to a technical decision.
Oh, it's legal knee. Okay, legal knee. Yeah, whatever it was. Yeah,
something illegal.
Could have
something
taken
illegal. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it might have been like DC on commentary. And he's like, "Yeah, you know what? Just take the DQ." Yeah, so I don't know. Like, maybe I'm selling this short. Are you looking forward to this more than I am?
Yeah, I am. It'd be very interesting. I know at the time when they fought the first time, Sterling's neck was really messed up, and it's been messed up for years, and probably, you know. And he won 5 straight before that, and he looked great in a lot of those fights with a neck that needed to be repaired. So maybe if he's healthy and that's all good, maybe this fight goes a little bit different. I still think Jan's going to win. Jan's just so super talented, but I don't want to sell Sterling short like this is going to be some kind of blowout. And and the first fight, if also Sterling didn't learn anything from that first fight, he's gonna be cooked here. But I mean, there's a lot. I mean, Jan's wrestling defense was great in that first fight, and he's such a gifted striker and a gifted boxer. But I mean, I hope Sterling also paid attention to that Sandhagen fight, because Jan clearly won that fight, but Sandhagen had him in some bad spots and in some dangerous spots, and there's a lot to learn. And if Sterling's actually healthy, I give him a better shot to win this fight than he had in the first one. I still think Jan's gonna win, but I don't. It's just. It's to me, it's more interesting now, given the aspect of what happened in the first fight and then everything that's gone on since. I mean, and if Sterling's healthy, then that's going to play a big key in this. But I still think Jan's going to win a decision in this one.
Yeah. I actually, I'm even going to say I don't think it's going to be a decision. I think he's going to finish him. Probably middle rounds, the third or fourth. But yeah, so now, if you've listened to the show before, we'll go over the main event and or any other title fights that are on the card, and then we pick our 3 fights on the card that we're most looking forward to, and then from there we'll just Ryan will run down the rest of the fights. So for me,
I do want to interject. I think we do need to talk about this third fight just as much as
that was gonna be one of my fights anyways. So
yeah,
it was gonna be one of my fights anyway. So let's just talk about it right now. Gilbert Burns and Khamzat Chimaev. So I think I've said before, I think this, but I said this last time too. I think he's a big step up in competition for Khamzat, and maybe too early. I mean, you said it many times when they kept trying to book that Leon Edwards fight, and to me this seems kind of similar to that. Gilbert Burns probably a little bit, not quite as good as Leon Edwards, but what's he ranked? Number 4, number 3?
Burns is 2.
Burns. 2. Shit. Yeah. And Khamzat is, whatever. He's like 11. He's ranked now 10, 11. Okay. So 11 against 2. And I mean, really, he's only had like the one top, ranked guy that he's beat, but he just mowed through him in Jinglang Li. And that's, he's mowed through everybody so far. And this is the guy that they're, I'm sure, somewhere on a board in somebody's room, they've got, mid 2023, Khamzat Chimaev challenging Kamaru Usman for the title, maybe even sooner than that if he wins this one. But this is a big step up for him, and Gilbert Burns is. I don't know what to say. Like, it seems to me a bad matchup, but maybe you see something that I don't, because this is not the guy I would have put him in there with.
Yeah. Okay. First thing I want to go over. I know you had a busy weekend and might have been off social media. Maybe you didn't see some.
I was.
But did you didn't see the Brian Stan video, did you?
Is that the thing you sent me to read, or was that
no, that's something else.
Okay. Well, I didn't see it anyways.
Okay. So, 2017, June of 2017, this was when Brian Stanton was still doing commentary for the UFC. They were over in New Zealand, I think it was, whatever, it was a show headlined by Mark Hunt and Derek Lewis. Anyway, they were doing a Q&A session with fans, and Brian Stanton was one of the people doing the Q&A, and there was a fan that asked him about if he had heard of any like upcoming fighters to look out for. Now, remember, this is in June of 2017, so this is almost 5 years ago. And he didn't know the guy's name, but he said he had heard about this welterweight that was in the All-Stars gym in Sweden who was just destroying everybody in the training room, and how everybody was raving about this guy. Come to find out, the guy he was talking about was Khamzat Chimaev. So it's crazy how and at this time Chimaev had not even made his MMA debut. He was just he had done some amateur fights and was just training. But here we are 5 years ago. Brian Stanley was already telling people to look out for this guy, and now here he is, on the cusp of fighting for a title and in his biggest UFC fight to date. I said it after before the Jingliang fight. I still had a lot of questions about Chimaev, and then I said after that fight that I was fully aboard the hype train. I still am fully aboard the hype train. This is going to be a tough fight for him. Gilbert Burns, standing. Burns has knockout power. Chimaev has quick hands and all that. The ground is where this is going to get interesting, because Burns is one of the best submission guys in the sport, and he's an Abu Dhabi champion and all that, and all those accolades. Chimaev's got the Habib style wrestling and the Habib style top game, which his top game might be more suffocating than Burns is, just because it's just completely different, because Burns is all about hunting submissions and whereas Chimaev is staying on top, smashing you, smothering you, taking your breath away. This is as intriguing as the main event to me. And I don't know. I don't know how it's going to go. It would not, either one winning is not a shock to me, because, and I think if Burns wins, it just shows, you threw Chimaev to the wolves maybe one or two fights too soon. But if Chimaev wins, and I think the only option next would be a title shot for him, to be honest.
This soon, eh? Wow.
Yeah, but
when I said mid 2023, like you're thinking maybe even earlier.
Yeah, and now if Usman isn't fighting until later in the year and not in the summer, like as anticipated, do they try to, and Chimaev wins, do they try to do Edwards and Chimaev again to with the winner fighting Usman? Who knows what could happen there? But I don't think it's a tough one, because I don't know, a loss. I think a loss would hurt Chimaev. It might not hurt him all that much, but in the fans' eyes, I think a loss would hurt him, because everybody wants him to have that Habib mystique of, being an undefeated fighter. And this Gilbert Burns may have been too quick for this one.
Well, for this one.
The
other thing is, like, Gilbert Burns, like, we know how good he is.
Yeah.
But I don't think, like, the general public, he's not a guy that you even though he's ranked number 2, like, he's not a guy that you just instantly think of in that group of, like, great welterweights.
Yeah.
Losing to him.
And he got up to number 2 because of his constant, like, taking fights on short notice against, let's be honest, he was taking fights against short notice against guys like Damian Maia and Tyron Woodley, guys who were well past their prime and well done. But and he scored wins over him. Let's be honest, he got those wins, but that vaulted him up the ladder probably quicker, just because of the name values. And then, when he fought Usman, he had a good first round against Usman, but once Usman got used to him, it was a clear Usman win. And he beat Stephen Thompson last time, but it was a boring fight, and he just negated Thompson's style. And Burns can have some boring fights too. So he's good. He's good. I don't know that he's very good. I don't know that he's great. But everything we've seen from Chimaev seems to indicate that Chimaev is great. So that's kind of what makes this really interesting.
See, one thing I don't think we're going to have here is a boring fight. So yeah, that'll be one thing. So I think I'm actually now that we've talked this out, I think I'm going with Chimaev.
Yeah, and we do know that the crowd's going to be is very likely going to be super into this fight, which is going to help a lot.
Oh yeah, probably for Chimaev as well, I would think.
Probably so, yeah.
Yeah. All right. So that was one of my
and Chimaev has grown on me a little bit. Him and his bromance with Darren Till and all their fun on social media. that's really grown on me because Darren Till's a great clown, and he's very likable, and I think he's brought out a different kind of side of Khamzat, the bromance and the fun that those two have. So it's kind of giving Khamzat a little bit more of a personality too, so which is a positive for him. So
I mean I don't need to be sold on his personality. I mean, he got me from his first interview and his first fight, and then taking a fight 2 weeks later, and then he wanted both titles. I think he would have fought for both titles on the same night if they would have let him.
But it's a different contrast from the guy who's just saying I'm going to smash, I'm going to kill everybody. But you just see this crazy like warrior mentality, and then you see him with Darren Till. I was like, oh man, he's just kind of a goofball too. So it kind of just cool. brings out a different side of him, which makes him more likable.
Cool. Okay, so that was my first one. I'm just gonna, because I only had 3 picked, and that was one of them. So I'm sure you maybe have 3 others. So my second one, I'm gonna go to the prelims, and it's a guy that we saw in the Contender Series who had like a super quick finish, and he's a Canadian guy. Mike Malott making his UFC debut against Mickey Gall at welterweight, another welterweight fight. This one, I think this one's going to be a lot of fun. It could probably end in a submission, and probably fairly quickly on one hand. And Malott is a guy, if I'm remembering right, this is the guy that had cornered like a whole ton of fighters like in their career. So he was like totally comfortable fighting, even though, most of those guys, it was their first time in that kind of environment. And he's 30, so he's a little bit old to be making his UFC debut, but I think he's an interesting prospect at 7-1-1, and should probably he's gonna get a win over Mickey Gall. But if Mickey Gall gets the win, then that's another prospect like CM Punk that he derailed. So that's my one, and then my third one is on the main card, Vince Pichel and Mark Madsen. Madsen's 11-0. But I didn't think he looked that great in his last fight. And Vince Pichel is, he's like 50, but he's like a young 50. He's like 39, but but he's won 3 in a row and 7 of his last 8, which is like kind of crazy when you think about it, because you don't really think about Vince Pichel. But it's a tough one for Mark Madsen. And I'm surprised they made this fight. So, I'm not
surprised they made this fight. I made this fight.
That's true. You did. That was exactly the name you said. And it was funny because you said something like, "Oh, I think you should fight a young guy," and then you said Vince Pichel. Yeah. And it's like, but he's young in fighting years.
They fought on the same card back in August, and they both won. And to me, it just made too much sense to book them against each other next. And I was suggesting that on the show and in my column, and sure enough, hell.
Lo and behold, they made it.
Lo and behold, my suggestion, which gets run by certain people, it came to fruition.
Yeah, but I mean, Madsen is a guy, who he's the pride of Denmark, and former Olympian. I mean, that's his nickname, the Olympian. And but I mean, he struggled to beat Clay Guida in his last fight, and in fact, it was a split decision. And he's gonna have to win here, or the hype train's over. So that's a lot of pressure. And with Pichel, he's kind of got nothing to lose. He's kind of free rolling, as we like to say. And and I'm just totally interested in that. So anything you want to add on the Mickey Gall Mike Malott fight before you go on to your three?
Not really. I haven't looked Malott up very much yet. I'm still kind of working on my preview. So I do think it's an interesting fight. And then back on Pichel and Madsen for a second. I just want to point out Vince Pichel having one of the best nicknames in all of mixed martial arts.
Yeah,
so
from hell, right?
Vince from hell, Pichelle, like that's just that's so great. So just
I was right on Malott, right? Like he's the guy that corners everybody.
I think so.
Team Alpha Male.
I think so. Yeah. I can't remember off the top of my head.
Okay, all right. Well, you'll let us know in the preview column that you're doing this week. Okay, so what are your three?
Okay, first I'm going to go with the featured prelim welterweight fight, and mainly for the A side of this fight, but Ian Gary against Darian Weeks. I mean, this is a showcase fight for Ian Gary. We hopefully everybody remembers him from the Madison Square Garden card where he got that first round knockout over Jordan Williams. And he was talking about how he's, Conor McGregor was the first wave of Irish fighter, but he's the next wave of Irish fighter. And everything about him screams that he's a future title challenger, possibly future champion. He moved from his training camp from Ireland to Sanford MMA there in Florida for this one. But I mean, he's a fantastic striker. He's undefeated. He's got everything you're looking for in a prospect and a future challenger. And I mean, this is going to be another showcase for him. He's nicknamed the Future, and that's an apt nickname. And I think he's only like 22, 23,
24, but still
24. Yeah, just turned 24. 8-0, and what is it, like almost all knockouts? Almost all, like 5 knockouts, 1 submission, 2 decisions. It's just, I mean, that's the guy that you got to keep your eye on. My second fight, I'm going to go with the other main card fight that we haven't brought up, but it's a very interesting fight. Strawweight fight, Mckenzie Dern against Tisha Torres. Dern's coming. Dern was probably a win away from a title shot when she lost to Marina Rodriguez in October. Dern needed knee surgery going into that fight. She had surgery afterwards. She said that it affected her performance. That's what everybody always says when they're hurt. Nobody knows you can always take that stuff with a grain of salt because everybody's hurt. But she had won 5 in a row since then, had looked good since she came back from giving birth, aside from the loss to Amanda Hebus. And Tisha Torres, she's had a roller coaster UFC career. She, I think she won like 6 of her first 7 with the only loss to Rose. I mean, was on the cusp of a title shot. Then she lost 4 straight. But when you look at who she lost to Jessica Andrade, Joanna, Weili, and then Rodriguez. Was it Rodriguez? Somebody.
I think so.
Yeah, Rodriguez. Yeah, that's right. They both lost to Rodriguez. And then she's won 3 straight since then, and she's looked just as good as ever, and got a whole lot of momentum. And I think the winner of this fight is going to be, in a title eliminator next. So it's a pretty big, important fight. And then my last fight to look forward to is actually going to be the opening fight on the card. It's a bantamweight fight. Julio
I had a feeling you're going to pick that one
against Daniel Santos. Arce's he's an action fighter. He's always in some exciting fights. Daniel Santos is making his debut. He's a 10-1 guy, but he's from the shoot box. He hasn't fought since 2019. He was 27 years old. He's an exciting fighter. He's got knockout power. He's got submissions, 7 finishes in his 10 wins. He's a really strong prospect, and that should be a really fun fight and that's a hell of a fight to kick off a card.
Yeah, no kidding. Julio Arce. That tells you it's a deep card. All right, so there's only a few fights we haven't gone over, but why don't you take us through the rest of them?
Okay, so for our 4 early prelim fights that'll be on ESPN Plus, the night opens up with the bantamweight fight between Julio Arce and Daniel Santos that we just talked about. Then we have a strawweight fight. Piera Rodriguez making her UFC debut against Kay Hansen, who's going back down to strawweight. Then we have a middleweight fight. A guy that we've talked about a little bit here, Anthony Blank Hernandez.
Fluffy. Yeah.
I was wanting you to do your fluffy
Hernandez.
Thing. Yeah. Fluffy thing. Yeah. He's fighting Josh Fremd. There was a whole lot of changes, middleweight changes. Hernandez was supposed to fight. This is like his 3rd different opponent, but he was. Yeah, well, he was originally supposed to fight Albert Duraev, and then Dricus du Plessis was supposed to fight Chris Curtis, but then Curtis and Duraev both were out. Then Hernandez and du Plessis were going to fight, and then all of a sudden Kelvin Gastelum, who was supposed to fight Nasruddin Imavov, had visa issues, so du Plessis was going to fight Gastelum. They got Fremd, who was on the last episode of Dana White's Looking for a Fight, so they got Fremd to fight Hernandez, and all of a sudden Gastelum and du Plessis was off because literally, like, I think a day or two afterwards, Gastelum pulled out of the fight, and du Plessis is not happy about it because he's furious about it. He just didn't, just kind of felt cheated out of it because he was going to step up against a guy like Kelvin Gastelum on a week's notice, and then Gastelum pulls out 2 days afterwards because of a lingering knee issue. But whatever. But anyway, we got Anthony Hernandez against Josh Fremd. That should be a fun fight. And then the early prelims ends with a heavy fight. Alexei Oleinik against Jared Vanderaa. Oleinik was supposed to fight Ilir Latifi a couple weeks ago, but it got moved back. But Latifi was still, whatever medical issues caused it to get moved back was still lingering. So Vanderaa steps in like on a week's notice. Vanderaa is coming off a loss to Andre.
He does that a lot.
Yeah, he's coming off a loss to Andre Arlovski in February, while Oleinik is going for his 60th win. So that should be
that matches his age.
Yeah. Then our main prelims that are on ESPN, they kick off with the welterweight fight, Mickey Gall against Mike Malott. Then we have a women's bantamweight fight, Aspen Ladd against Raquel Pennington. I mean, that's a good fight. Yeah, it's a good fight. Pennington's taking it on short notice, replacing Irene Aldana. I mean, the big question mark on this will be Ladd in the scale on Friday because she's had she's had scary weigh-ins at bantamweight, and she's claiming that everything's good now, working with a nutritionist and trying to get down healthily, but that's one of those we'll see. So we'll see on Friday how she looks. Then we have a heavyweight fight, Jarzenia Rosenster against Marcin Tybura. It's a fight that's kind of flying under the radar, but both these guys are coming off losses, need wins. There could be a knockout or it could be a very boring decision fight. So it's kind of one of those that it's literally a tale of two possibilities. Either Rosenstruik's going to knock Tybura out quick, or it's going to be a drawn out 15-minute kind of uneventful fight. And then the prelims end with the Ian Gary Darian Weeks fight. And then we have the main card. We've gone over.
Yeah. Yeah, so so obviously the main card's on pay-per-view.
Yeah.
And it says, the 5 fights as it stands right now: Michelle Madsen, Dern Torres, Burns Chimaev, Sterling Yan for the bantamweight title, and Volkanovski, Korean Zombie for the featherweight title. I was just looking, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 undefeated fighters on this card. So we'll see how many of them do you think stay undefeated, Ryan? Let's mini game that we usually do at the end of the month.
See what is so it's Chimaev, Madsen, Gary, and Rodriguez. I'm gonna say 3 of them.
3, and I'm gonna say 2.
Okay.
I'm going to say 2 and 2. 2 of them will keep their undefeated record. 2 of them are going to lose.
And I'm saying 3 because I'm starting to really lean Chimaev over Burns.
Yeah, I am too, actually.
I think it's to be Chimaev, Gary, and Rodriguez staying undefeated.
See, and I think Kay Hansen is going to beat Rodriguez, but yeah, I'm not betting on these. And then the other one is I'm losing him. Oh, Madsen. Yeah, I think Pichel is going to be Madsen. So that is the show, and that is obviously on ESPN Plus for the prelims. The main prelims are on ESPN as well as ESPN Plus, and the pay-per-views on ESPN Plus starting at 10 p.m. Eastern, as all of them do. So we should have a great night of fights. I still haven't figured out when I'm going to watch these because I got a busy day on Saturday, but I will watch, and we will be back next week to actually, I guess we'll do something for the Patreon on Sunday, recapping this, or Saturday night.
Yeah.
Maybe Sunday. Maybe Sunday if you're available. Yeah, because I don't think I'm going to be watching this live. I got a few things going on Saturday, so but we will do something Sunday for the Patreon. So we'll be recapping this, and we may even try to find a guest, but I'm not promising anything.